Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and we're in prime time John Ford. And my buddy Griff is back, who's one of my frequent collaborators here with my John Ford series. Griff, thank you so much for coming on.
Shane, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and we'll be talking about Drums Along the Mohawk, which is one of his frontier westerns, taking place during the around Revolutionary War times. But for those who haven't tuned into the show before, we have three segments. We have our coming attractions from March 22nd, and then we'll have our feature film and then some recommendations for you. But let's get to those coming attractions, which a lot of small films coming out this particular weekend, a couple of IFC and Shutter releases, grabbing some attention, some documentaries. But there's one big movie that's coming out this weekend. And Griff, why are you excited about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire?
I'm excited about it because I really enjoyed the previous movie, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that movie, and general like big fan of it's McKenna Grace, right? Who's like the daughter, who's Egon's granddaughter, who's very much like Egon. I miss Harold Ramis.
Yeah,
That that
as
was
do I,
that
Shane.
that was one of the tough things watching that movie. I'm just like, obviously we got like 2 seconds of Ghost Harold Ramis, but like missing from that. But I think the thing that has me most excited about this new one is it feels so different. Because like like Afterlife like they literally brought back ghosts and stuff from the last like the original film. So like they're hitting on some of the familiar beats, trying to restart the franchise. This looks completely different. So I'm like, I remember when they had the trailer, I'm like, this feels so different, but I'm kind of about it. And honestly, the most recent trailer where Bill Murray gets some of the lines, I'm just like, see, and this is why I love Ghostbusters. Bill Murray's great.
Shane, in Afterlife, I didn't realize that that was Bob Gunton playing the Harold Ramis character because when I went to go meet him at the Chiller convention in Parsippany last year, I saw photos of him with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd there, and I'm like, wow, that was him because I thought they CGI'd Harold Ramis, but I had no idea that that was Bob Gunton as that character.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that either. But it definitely, this new film has quite the ensemble cast. Obviously, you bring back almost everybody from the original. It's like they haven't shown any Sigourney Weaver, and I highly doubt Rick Moranis is back.
Mhm.
But you have they've got Annie Potts back, Milnitz in the suit, and you have like Kumail Nanjiani, Pat Oswalt. They even brought Tin back. They brought Dickless back, Griff. It's
Oh
perfect,
yeah.
and he's the mayor of New York.
Oh God.
Uh, Mike Matherton played two of the biggest just regular human villains in 80s movies between Ghostbusters and Die Hard. Just love hating him so much. It actually is really fitting that they brought him back for this. So be interesting, but it looks like it's going to be a fun time. And the time this releases on Friday, I would have seen it Thursday night. So I'm excited. And speaking of Thursday, there's actually a new Amazon film coming out too. So double dose from Griff. Why are you excited about the new Roadhouse?
Because I really like the original with Patrick Swayze, and I also really like Jake Gyllenhaal and his works. So I'm curious to see which direction this new Roadhouse movie goes in. And I almost forgot that Gyllenhaal and Swayze acted in Donnie Darko together.
Yeah, it's come all full circle for Jake Gyllenhaal. It's like I got to work with Patrick Swayze. Now I'm in Roadhouse. Um, if I'm not mistaken, it's Doug Liman is directing it, right? And he's like, I don't want anything to do with this. They didn't put it in theaters. But like he's a talented director, and Jake Gyllenhaal's a fantastic actor. It'll be interesting seeing Conor McGregor acting because
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen him acting like acting. I've seen him acting before. He sure puts on a fun, crazy persona for UFC and stuff like that, if it is a persona. That just might be him. But we'll have to see how that Roadhouse film turns out. I'm particularly excited about Immaculate. I don't know what it is. It must be the Roman Catholic upbringing, but like those religious horror movies are scary as hell to me. It's like, and this seems like it's really creepy. You have this coming out, the first Omen coming out. So like, tis the season for religious horror movies coming out over the next couple months. And I think Sydney Sweeney's really talented, and I hope this is a nice bounce back for her after Madam Web, because I don't think that movie did anybody any favors. So yeah.
After the backlash against Madam Web came out, I had no interest in seeing that. But yeah, it should be good with Sydney Sweeney, judging by her other work, Anyone But You and Euphoria.
Yeah, and in particular, she has been trying to get this film made. She's a producer on the film, so that kind of gives me some hope that it's something that's been worth the time. I know I just checked some of the reviews are kind of like middle of the road, but we'll have to see. I heard amazing things about her performance though. So as long as it's creepy, that's the whole point, right? It's a horror
Yeah,
movie, so we shall see. But very much not a horror film, even though there honestly is a couple horrific moments in this, is Drums Along the Mohawk, which is the John Ford film from 1939. I'm almost in 1940, Griff. Almost, almost made the 40s. But yes, this is based off of a 1936 novel starring Henry Fonda and Claudette Colbert, and based on a group of historic frontier figures during the Revolutionary War. So it's kind of like a composite of real people and some events that happened. And most significant, probably, is this was John Ford's first Technicolor film. So that was a big leap in terms of his career that I remember when I watched the first Talkie for John Ford, I'm like, oh my God, no more me trying to figure out what the hell's going on in these movies. But once now this is a big step forward because he's made some gorgeous films in his career, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more of these Technicolor ones. And also, this was nominated for one Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for Edna May Oliver, who certainly earned it. Um, she was a very, very strong character in this film. But Griff, what are some of your general thoughts on Drums Along Mohawk?
when I first saw Drums Along the Mohawk, it was many years ago. I was either in middle school or high school, and I checked it out from my library. It was on
Mhm.
videotape. And at that time, I was really interested in the American Revolution, and my first impressions were amazing. And I have it on DVD, and I've seen it many, many times
Mhm.
since. I found out something very interesting about Drums Along the Mohawk recently that I didn't know before. Being that it was made in 1939, Great Britain was fighting against Nazi Germany. And the reason why you don't really see any British soldiers in Drums Along the Mohawk is because John Ford didn't want to portray the British in a villainous manner because of their fight against Nazi Germany at the time. That's why most of the villains you saw in Drums Along the Mohawk were natives.
And well, honestly, it was par for the course at that point too, which honestly isn't very surprising because, like, obviously, one of the running motifs in a lot of classic westerns, it's like Native Americans were the villains in the story, and I did think that's an interesting point that you brought up, Griff, because I was wondering why, like, because like the only white people that you see that are like the villains really is John Carradine's eye patch wearing, like that guy looks like a villain kind of character. And that's a very interesting point in terms of context of when the film was made, that it's like, hey, they're our allies. We don't want to make them look bad,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I saw their Wikipedia page. There's like paragraphs of information about trying to like hone in on like the historical accuracy of this. And my biggest feeling is it's a film. This isn't a documentary. it's not going to be historically accurate. And to be honest, a film from the 1930s, I don't think is going to be particularly historically accurate about like the revolution and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to do research now, right?
Mhm.
Onto those kinds of things and have a better sense. It's like love Braveheart, and that's the most historically inaccurate movie ever made. So
Right.
it is what it is. But in the context of this film, one, it's a gorgeous film. And John Ford picked up that color filmmaking real quick because there's just a richness about the colors in the film. There's definitely a couple of shots in particular where, like, they'll have Colbert like very upset seeing Henry Fonda and all the other troops going off in the distance, and this big wide shot of like the valley, and I'm just like, only John Ford John Ford's going to be shooting stuff like that, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And someone's at the top of the frame, uh, as it should be, top or bottom. But it's definitely a gorgeous film from that perspective. That was one of the first things that I noticed because, like, this film opens up with like a little wedding, but like the richness and all the colors and everything, even from like a simple scene of a bunch of people standing in a big mansion, it looks gorgeous. So I guess I shouldn't have been surprised it is John Ford. Like, obviously, it's a big transition. And to be honest, a couple of his first Hawking films were not the strongest to me. But it may obviously picked up on the filmmaking with color film a lot quicker because, like, right off the bat, this is definitely one of his more gorgeous films.
Yeah, actually, with the opening credits, was that needlepoint, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that was something else I noticed too with the credits and then like the like title, not quite title cards. Anytime they needed to like show something up on the screen, they had all this like old school needlepoint and it looked great. And that was like a nice little detail that I appreciated in terms of some of the storytelling with it because obviously it fits the time and it's like that's how people would potentially tell stories or represent events happening is like you can needlepoint it. So that was also pretty cool. I mentioned him earlier, but like John Carradine's character just has like this perfect design to him. The second he shows up, he was like, "This dude is bad news." Mr. Eye Patched looked like Rochefort from like the Three Musketeers. I'm just like,
Yeah,
yep.
right, right.
And it's just like, well, villain in the house. And John Carradine was fantastic in Stagecoach. He didn't really get a ton to do in this movie, but like when he was on screen, he was intimidating. I think one of the most important things about this though is Henry Fonda and Claudette Colbert are so likable as actors. Like Henry Fonda is like the prototypical like old school American leading man. And I think that's one of the things it's like he's such a likable actor. He's up there with like Jimmy Stewart. You need somebody to lead a movie, it's like they're pretty great pick. And I think he did a great job of the two of them did a great job of like anchoring the film in terms of like I felt for them, I empathized for this couple, and they obviously went through a lot throughout this film.
Yeah, Orson Welles once called Henry Fonda the face of America.
And that is really believable because like he is one of the most like virtuous kinds of leading man in Hollywood. And like 12 Angry Men, it's like he's the one who stands up and it's like, we really need to do right by this kid. It's specifically why Sergio Leone wanted him in Once Upon a Time in the West for the subversion of that. Because it's like, take the most likable, good man, leading man in Hollywood and make him your villain. And he straight up kills a whole family, including a kid in the opening scene. And you're just like, that's not my Henry Fonda.
Yeah,
And
that was the effect that Sergio Leone wanted to have when Henry Fonda was on the Michael Parkinson show. And I think Fonda also mentioned on the Dick Cavett show as well the scene where the McBain family is murdered and these mysterious individuals with the trench coats, come
Yeah,
out of nowhere. And then, the camera pans around and then you see her and like, oh my God, it's Henry Fonda, because the audiences at that time would never have expected him to play a character like that.
absolutely not. And obviously, John Ford was working with him in his prime here because, like, you have him in Grapes of Wrath, you have him in Young Mr. Lincoln,
Yeah.
and that relationship continued with this. There, I guess the two glaring things that I had with the film, like I already mentioned this before, and it's kind of a redundant point in all these John Ford films. It's like there's like one token Native American character that's like, hey, he's a good one, and it's Henry Fonda's friend, and then the rest of them is just like all they do is come in pillaging and destroying everything. It is what it is at this point. It's just like if I had a dollar for every old school Western that just had Native American people as savage villains, it's like I could retire.
Right.
But one scene that was like really weird to me was I get what it was going for. I just feel like it's probably a little dated with some of the stuff. And is like when his friend shows up for the first time and Colbert freaks the hell out. And I thought that was obviously it was meant on purpose to show like, hey, like this guy's a nice man. He's a friend of mine, but like she didn't know him. She like freaked out when he showed up in their house. And then like Henry Fonda straight up slapped her like
Mm.
wholeheartedly, just like whack. I'm just like, holy crap. And then even his friend joined in and brought him in a stick, and it's like, use this next time. And I'm like, wow. Tell me this movie was made in 1939 without telling me this movie was made in 1939. You know, bound to happen. Some scenes are not going to age well. I'm like that one in particular. I'm like, wow, they bonded over punishing their wife and putting them in place. I'm just like, yep, it's 1930s for sure. It reminded me of the beginning of the Philadelphia story. Have you seen that, Griff?
I did see it, but I haven't seen it in a while.
When like Catherine Hepburn straight gets punched in the face within the first 2 minutes of the movie, and just like just sits there like, oh shucks. I'm like, it's just like it's very particular, and I'm pretty sure that was very early 1940s or late 30s. So I'm like, well, we got the aged parts out of this. But in general, in terms of like the filmmaking and everything, like John Ford's fantastic about shooting action. Because the whole entire third act of this movie's an invasion, basically. And there's a lot of action. That was one particular stunt that they did I thought was nuts was when all the Native Americans started like storming the front gate and they let them in and just straight shot a cannon at them. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, that was nuts.
like, crap. And then obviously they used a HUD to they had some kind of explosion go off because then there's like smoke everywhere and people flying. I'm like, that's a crazy stunt to do in like 1939, and it worked. It really built up the tension, and it got me. I'm just like, holy crap.
Hmm.
Um, one particular moment too, because Francis Ford makes a appearance in this film as like he looks like a Davy Crockett type because he has like the fur outfit on and he has like the raccoon hat and everything. And he's the one who gets sent out to go to help originally.
Right.
And they straight up light him on fire in that like carriage full of hay. And I'm like, this movie's going hard. I did not expect this from a movie from like 1939, but like John Ford was not pulling out any punches from like the climax of this film. This went all out, some crazy action going on.
Yeah, John Ford would really challenge his actors like that. And also, what struck me too about the movie was the sense of community, especially after Claudia Colbert's character made it clear that she was no frontier woman and she wanted to
Mhm.
leave. Even after that, she stayed and she helped out not just Fonda, but also their neighbors, just banding together, especially during the wartime, the invasion.
Well, yeah, and I guess to go through the film a bit too, because like some of the big moments of like when Carradine and all of his Native American warriors come in and burn their farm to the ground, burn all their crops, burn their house down. That was like a big emotional moment. And this film, like this couple goes through a lot, and the community goes through a lot too, and they're in it together. And you can feel then like they get this job helping out the older woman. If I'm not mistaken, that was Edna Mae Oliver's character who wound up being nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Um, there's a couple really funny moments in this film. Like one of the guys who's doing roll call who got so mad because somebody didn't say he was in roll call and it turned out it was him. I'm
Yeah.
just like, wow. And I did not expect to actually get a laugh out of that, but I did. And then even like when Edna Mae Oliver, like the two Native American men, show up in her room and start trying to burn it down, and she starts yelling at them to carry her bed out.
Yeah, I never seen someone so stubborn.
She sure as hell was stubborn and she was going to make them like carry her out. It's like, can you imagine stopping two people from burning your house down and being like, if you're going to burn my house down, you better carry my ass out of here?
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God. She was something. I'm not surprised she got nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this because supporting actress because she was a lot of fun in it. And she also
Hmm.
had some big moments too. And like when she winds up passing away later in the film, like that was an emotional moment.
Yeah.
Um, there's a couple of there's one particular great use of like visual storytelling because obviously who's the big bad villain in the film? Don Carradine. What's his defining feature? He has an eye patch. And then at the very end of the battle, and they're talking about where he's at, and you just see Blueback, the Native American guy who's friends with Henry Fonda, just casually putting the eye patch on him, like, well, I think John Carradine's dead.
Yeah.
And it's just like something like that really works in terms of visual storytelling. And I appreciated that from John Ford. I think probably the biggest emotional moment of the film was like when they all go off to fight and a whole bunch of them come back. The captain or general who's in charge winds up passing away.
Hmm.
And then Colbert like goes out to find Henry Fonda and finds him on the side of the road, and like that tenderness between them really sold a lot for me in terms of their relationship and where the film was going. It was pretty impactful and poignant, and that's why you get two fantastic actors like them to really sell that relationship, and I think it really worked for the film.
Yeah, I agree too. Yeah, absolutely, Shane. Yeah, and again, that sense of community, it definitely applied to that scene.
Absolutely, because they're all stuck in the same place together. Everybody's
Right.
like tired and broken down, and there's a lot of like big emotional beats here, and it just has this rousing ending too, with the army finally showing up, and they had the flag,
Hmm.
the first American flag, and how they run that up the fort and like put that at the top. I'm like, that was in a very John Ford kind of moment, but it really worked for this film in terms of like exactly because so much of this film's about community. And that solidified it's like we're here to stay, we're putting our roots down. And that was a big emotional moment at the end of the film.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, that they were there to stay. Kind of like with Mel Gibson in The Patriot, that they were there to stay, building their new home, their new
Yep.
community.
That's another one that's very historically inaccurate, but I love Patriot. I watched the Patriots so many times growing up. If I think about it, that's probably the one movie I've watched the most from the Revolutionary War. It made me hate Jason Isaacs so much. I didn't. Damn him, damn that man.
Yeah, good old Tom Wilkinson.
Yeah, rest in peace, Tom Wilkinson. He was a
Yeah.
great Cornwallis in that. But I guess, Griff, are there any other things that stood out to you about the film that you wanted to bring up?
Well, from the background of it, it was released in 1939. And a lot of people say that 1939 was one of the best, if not the best years for movies. And Drums Along the Mohawk was overlooked by other movies of that time: Gone with the Wind, Wuthering Heights, Stagecoach, Dark Victory, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Yeah, I mean, even though it was a successful movie at the time, it wasn't as talked about and focused on as much as the other movies.
Well, it's interesting too, because like I have my letterboxed up with my list of 1939 films. I've seen eight up to this point. And this list includes Gone with the Wind, Only Angels Have Winged, Young Mr. Lincoln, Drums Along the Mohawk, Worthington Heights, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Stagecoach, and Wizard of Oz. So that's pretty legit. That
Yeah,
is that is a crazy year for film. And it definitely and that's the hard thing because I'm sure young Mr. Lincoln got more attention than this. And even just talking about John Ford films in particular, and
mhm.
even talking about Henry Fonda films in general. Obviously, he got to play Abraham Lincoln in that. So, like, that was a big time role for him. And I guess, kind of in summation, as I'm looking, like, this is definitely one of the higher up films that I've watched so far. Because at this point, I'm up to 39, looks like, John Ford films that I've watched for this series, and this is my number four. The only films that I have higher: The Informer, Four Sons, and number one is Stagecoach.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert: Searchers is going to be number one unless something completely blows me away. Uh,
Yeah.
the Searchers is one of my favorite films of all time. So, but no, this was definitely, it has its dated moments. It is what it is and to be expected at this point, but like it's a really well made, gorgeous looking film about community and has some really strong performances and some great action and some stunts that I did not expect to see in that big battle at the end of this film. So definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, if you're looking for historical accuracy, Drums Along the Mohawk isn't the movie for you. But I don't think audiences at that time really cared about historical accuracy. They weren't judging it. They just wanted to be entertained.
Well, yeah, and I guess it depends on who you ask now, because like a lot of historical epics that are very popular in the past 30 years were not historically accurate. But, it's a lot easier to do your own research and be like, this wasn't how it was. And,
Yeah.
like, even my favorite film from last year, The Iron Claw, the story about the Von Erich family, it's just like I saw a whole bunch of people was like, this changed this, that, and or other. I'm like, this made this movie like ripped my heart out and ripped it in half. So like when it really came down to it, it accomplished its goal. This was a tragic story. So like,
Yes, such a good movie.
yeah. But shifting gears to our last segment here, we have some recommendations. And Griff, time for a lighter note. What would you like to recommend to everybody?
Uh, Well, I went to go see Brian Adams in concert last night, a friend of mine and I. And when we got back, we were watching Robin Hood Men in Tights. Now, because I was so tired, I didn't get to watch the whole movie, but from what I saw of it, I really did enjoy it. Eventually I will watch it in its entirety, but that's one I definitely would recommend, not only to Mel Brooks fans who haven't seen the movie, but just to fans of comedy in general. In fact, I didn't realize about Robin Hood Men in Tights that the reason why Mel Brooks wanted Carrie Elwes to play the title character was because of seeing him in Princess Bride. And Carrie Elwes said that when he played his character in The Princess Bride, he modeled that character off of Robin Hood. So
Well,
it's interesting that connection.
Well, it's that I think that's very noticeable from the classic The Adventures of Robin Hood. There's definitely a lot of influence there. And Carrie Ellis is so great. And that moment's like, and I can even do an English accent. I'm just like throwing shade at Kevin Costner here.
Yeah, I was gonna say because as good as Robin Hood Prince of Thieves was, I think the main critique was, oh, Kevin Costner was too American. He didn't have the English accent or the manners or whatever.
Yeah, casting choices in that movie are like I know why Christian Slater was in it because of the time period. Christian Slater was super popular, but like just imagine
Yeah,
Christian Slater in a Robin Hood movie is odd. Alan
yeah.
Rickman though, he was great. Um,
Mhm.
like this, like Men in Tights is so funny. We're men in tights. The whole musical number, the whole thing when they burn the village down. It's like, why does our village get burnt down every time they do one of these Robin Hood movies? And the whole like Hell was in this. At one point, he takes out Malcolm X glasses and is doing like a Malcolm X speech to the
Yeah.
merry men, just like, and also the Richard Lewis, rest in peace, so good as Prince John. And oh, you changed your name to Latrine. Yeah, before it was Shithouse. So I could probably quote this whole entire movie. I've watched this movie a lot, as in all Mel Brooks movies, basically at this point for me, because this isn't one of his strongest ones, and you can definitely tell he started recycling jokes at this point. But like, it's
Right.
still a fun time, and him as Rabbi Tuckman instead of uh, uh, Father Tuck was so great. The fact that he does circumcisions and takes out a little guillotine is one of the funniest gags in the whole entire movie. But I don't know if you got that far, but
No, I didn't
and
know.
just you wait. But actually, one of my recommendations is also a Mel Brooks film because I'll be talking about Robin Hood Men in Tights, the producers, for one of my podcasts. And I love the producers so much. One of my favorite moments at a movie theater is I went with my other brother Tyler and his now wife Brittany, and we went to go see the. I think it was in 2017 when it had a big anniversary. They put it back in theaters with TCM, and they had a whole opening of Ben Mankiewicz interviewing Mel Brooks, and it was so great. And I think that was the first time I heard the story of like Dustin Hoffman was supposed to be Leo,
Oh, I
Leo
didn't know
Bloom,
that.
and he was cast everything, and then Mel he got went to Mel Brooks like I just got invited to uh audition for The Graduate, so he left the producers to go make The Graduate with Mel Brooks's wife
Yeah,
and
that's
Anne
nutty.
Bancroft. And then he had an affair with Anne Bancroft in the movie. So it all comes full circle. But no, I love this movie. It is people think like Blazing Saddles is like the most unabashed, unhinged Mel Brooks movie. The producers is. I would pay actual money to go see Springtime for Hitler, an actual like doing the whole musical. I would pay to go see it
Yeah,
because it looks so hilarious.
I probably would too. Did you like the Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick movie?
I watched it once because Jess loved that, and she had never seen the original, so like she had this connection with that one. I think I have to watch it again because like it's hard when you watch a remake and you have like the original in your head. Nathan Lane's great, Matthew Broderick is great, Will Ferrell was a lot of fun. There's no Kenneth Mars though. Monsieur no say baby. The whole cast Dick Shawn as LSD has give me my Goebbels, baby. Where's my Goebbels? It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And the fact that like Zero Mostel was one of the all-time greats. The
Yeah,
original Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. And just he was so talented and funny. And Gene Wilder. Just oh my God. Just like Now I'm wet. I'm wet and hysterical.
You
It
know,
just
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but I remember back in 2006 for TCM, Alec Baldwin interviewed Gene Wilder in Connecticut, and I remember recording it on video cassette. God knows where it is now, but I managed to find it on YouTube. And this new,
nice.
that new documentary that's coming out about him remembering Gene Wilder, I'm definitely interested in that.
Got to watch it. I got a screener for it a couple days ago. Loved every second of it because Gene Wilder is one of the greats. Now, my last two recommendations, real quick. So, a film in theaters that you could go check out is Cabrini. So, this is from the same director that did Sound of Freedom last year and from Angel Studios. I got to check out a screener last week, and it's a the story of Sister Cabrini, who's a nun who came to America trying to help the poor, impoverished Italian people
Hmm.
and was just faced with all kinds of prejudice. John Lithgow is the mayor of New York and wants all them Italians out, except he didn't say Italians. Um, this is it's a beautifully shot, really impactful historical drama biopic about this woman. It has a great cast. I'm blanking on her name, but the lead actress who plays Cabrini is so great. Giancarlo Giannini, who's a big time Italian actor. Some of you might know him from Hannibal and from Casino Royale. He popped up in he's Pope Leo the 13th, and it's just such a strong cast. And sure, like some of it's a little bit like melodramatic and stuff like that, and a little stagey and like showy, but it's still really impactful and it's a moving story. So I definitely recommend
Yeah, I'll probably check it out too because Sound of Freedom was excellent. And I've always liked John Lithgow. In fact, I got to see him three different times in person, twice in New York and once at the McCarter Theater in Princeton.
it. Oh my God, he was in Princeton. What
Yeah,
was he in?
well, the McCarter Theater was the first theater where he performed, and he did this show called Stories from the Heart, where he did two short stories where he played all the characters, and yeah, he did the whole stories by himself. Shane, it was amazing, and the two times I saw him on Broadway was in Dirty Ron Scoundrels, and the second time was in this play called the Columnist, where he played I forgot the columnist name, Aesop, I think his name was, or something like that. But going back to Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, he played the part that Michael Caine played in the movie.
Nice. I would have imagined him being that character. Probably not the Steve Martin one. Mother. But no, John Lithgow is amazing. And then my
Yeah.
last recommendation is I'm going to be talking about I talked about this for Rowan of the Wasteland is The Elephant Man, the least David Lynch movie ever made.
Yeah.
Um, the movie is gorgeous looking, the incredible black and white. John Hurt is so good as John Merrick, as this man suffering through this condition. Anthony Hopkins and Bancroft are fantastic in it too. So definitely another biopic, definitely worth checking out.
I didn't see the Elephant Man, but it's interesting because John Hurd was making Heaven's Gate at the time, and because there was so much downtime on that movie, he was able to go make the Elephant Man.
Sometimes it works out that way. And what's really crazy is Mel Brooks produced The Elephant Man.
I didn't know that.
I learned that from side recommendation. Mel Brooks's autobiography that came out recently is so good. So good. Highly recommend it. And it's just glorious because it's him. It's his voice. And it was such a great read. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, yeah. My friend Greg, with whom I went to that Brian Adams concert with last night, he read the Mel Brooks autobiography too, and he said it was great.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Bonus recommendations for all of you. But that is a wrap here on Welcome to the Wasteland. Our next episode that's going to be coming out is another big one, as I'm going to be tackling The Grapes of Wrath with my buddy Robert. And coming up, it looks like Then, as long as Griff's okay with it, we're gonna have a lot of Griff in the month of May because we're gonna be hitting on a bunch of John Ford's World War II documentaries. So those are
Hmm.
gonna be some exciting things to talk about. But Griff, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Shane. Oh, and overall, Drums Along the Mohawk was a very good movie, and I would recommend it to those who are really interested in military history, particularly American Revolution
Mhm.
history.
It's definitely it's a very different perspective than you see a lot of Revolutionary War films too, because usually you see them on the East Coast and during like actually in like the thick of the battles and not on the frontier. So it's out there. Go check it out. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.